Which killer should you buy because he's the most fun? That's what we're exactly going to discover today. So we're ranking every killer from least to most fun. And with that being said, let's start with place number 29. By the way, just want to say that the Knight's PTB just came out recently, so he's excluded from this list. I deem him very fun, rating 7.5. At least for now. With that being said, let's go. I know that the twins seem to get the last spot in my rankings pretty consistently. You know, I don't have anything against them personally, but as mentioned throughout my videos, the slacking playstyle that is somewhat forced onto you isn't for everyone. It definitely, though, isn't for me. It is boring and absolutely bland. By the way, further waking up from controlling Victor feels like the biggest time consumer of it all. You're not even able to control Charlotte for what, up to 2 seconds? Which is just so bad. So yeah, last place for our highest placed French killer. Next up we have the Hillbilly with a rating of 1.3, and I know that people can have fun with Billy, but the initial time you have to put into learning him is just way too much in my opinion. Yes, he can be fun when he is mastered, absolutely, but he is pretty boring when you haven't tweaked him to his fullest potential. This initial input makes it impossible for me to place him any higher, and therefore place number 28 for the Hillbilly. Okay, listen. I don't want to go on and blame it on his chase team again, because I have done this more than enough at this point. But I simply don't like the idea of his chain and of his power. You stand still, use his chain, and if you hit, then you're granted a somewhat easy hit. This, by the way, in my opinion, never feels rewarding, and I generally am not a fan of this a bit. I know that many people will give him a higher position, but I simply can't. Sorry, Cenobite, I know you deserve better. Please fight for him in the comments. Maybe you change my mind. Next up, we have Freddy with a rating of 1.9. And Freddy is a killer that kind of like landed here by default. I mean, I enjoy him so much, but his power simply revolves about survivors like screwing up as much as possible. If the survivor then stays asleep, you're allowed to use either the dream pellets or the snares, which are both way too easy to counter in my opinion. His teleportation is the weakest teleportation mechanic in-game, so it's basically outclassed by Unreal and by Dredge by a huge mile. And further, it is completely taken away once a gen is powered, and completely taken away if 5 have been done. Let's be real, most of his fun comes because of his ridiculously high kill rate in mid and low MMR, where I'm kind of like sitting at with him. But I even can't ignore all of the just mentioned facts, and therefore am forced to place him on place 26. Wraith is the exact opposite to Hillbilly in my opinion. He's just way too simple in order to find any enjoyment playing him. With my 3 tip short I've made about that, I think that I've covered like everything there is to cover about him. It is just about sneaking up, uncloaking behind cover, and blocking pallets and vaults, and there is simply nothing to add in my opinion. Further, I'd even say that from all killers, Wraith has by far the lowest skill ceiling. It's just shocks, and even more shocks. I don't want to justify it too much, and it's pretty obvious why he's that far down this list. See, pellets being pre-drum consistently, and you are basically shock therapying the entire game. There's nothing more repetitive than Doctor's playstyle in place number 24. Oni was sparked the first controversy of this ranking, and I absolutely know that. I seem to compare Oni a lot with Hillbilly, as both of them are pretty similar in many areas in my opinion. Earlier I said that Hillbilly was placed low because of the initial learning time you have to take in order to be good at him. Well, that's one part of it, but I also don't like Billy's playstyle, and when I don't enjoy Billy's playstyle while thinking that Oni and him being somewhat similar, you can only guess where Oni is placing. He is not very fun in my opinion, and his rating with 2.7 in place number 23 is definitely a thing we have to argue about in the comments. With a rating of 2.9 in our place number 22, we have the pig, and let's face it, she relies so heavily on RNG as unreal. In some games, the trap seems so stupidly strong, but in others, you feel like the most underpowered killer in existence. Mix this frustrating experience with a crouch mechanic, which is one of the worst powers in the entirety of Dead by Daylight. You can easily see why she is here. She is sometimes fun, I give her that, but only if RNG decides to not fuck her over. And next up we have the Hag, and that she is that high is actually a bit confusing to me as well. Her initial setup time is just the biggest downside of her overall enjoyment. Once you're set up though, she really seems to shine and is relatively fun compared to others, but then all of your traps are gone and you basically have to start from scratch again. Rating of 3.1, place number 21 is the Hag, and that's absolutely your ceiling. I won't go any higher with her ever. But Dredge just seems off. Can you guys relate to this comment in any way or form? I don't really know what to say, but he feels clunky and so different from all the other killers. Thinking about this throws his overall fun completely out of the window. Have you experienced the same thing that I've experienced with the Dredge? Like, let me know down below in the comments. I'm literally curious. In our place number 19, we find the clown, and let's face it, he suffers from a similar problem as the doctor. It's just bottles after bottles after bottles, but something, I don't know what it is, seems me to enjoy him far more than the doctor. His bottles give you a little more opportunities to outplay the survivor, especially with the yellow bottle, which is rarely used by casual and normal clown players. But with that being said, I think a rating of 3.4 is absolutely justified for the clown. He can be fun, but because of the fact that you have to throw bottles like every 5 seconds, it's just wears on him pretty much. And now we're making a big jump by 1.4 rating points. In our place number 18, we have the Plague, and we now find ourselves in the realm where killers are actually pretty okay and decent to play. Plague, though, seems to have landed here by accident almost. The games I've had with her in the recent times were also frustrating, but I simply had to put her this low. Despite giving me wins very consistently, her overall kit is a bit boring and a bit to me. Nonetheless, she's an absolute beast when it comes to stomping solo queue players. So if you want to get any enjoyment out of her, just play not against survivor friends, as if you had any decision to do that. Ha! Lovely stuff. Place 18 is the Blight. One place higher than the Plague is the Trickster, and if he had a crosshair, he would be so much more fun. Without that though, he just seems bland. There's nothing really to point out. He's okay and partly fun, but also boring, and his performance heavily depends on the map too. Trickster level 5.0 finds itself on place 17. I'll leave that in. I didn't change that in my script. Stupid me. And on place number 16, we have the Unravel rating of 5.5, and although she is my main, I try to, in this ranking, be a bit more objective when it comes to this. Unravel's placement is probably higher than anyone expected, really, but she is just a blast to players. Mind you, without the right map and without the right opponents, it's almost cruel to an extent where you just wanna fucking cry. If her power was just tweaked a tiny bit, she could locally be the cornerstone of this tier list, and I'm not even joking about that. The artist is an absolute demon when it comes to pallet mine games, mostly resulting in survivors leaving a pallet spot pretty quickly with you being able to catch up soon after. Her range burst where you can check on almost every gen with just one button tap is also insane, and no other killer has anything like this in common. The other effects make it easy to like, but because of the aforementioned W keying when she's played right, it also makes her pretty easy to dislike, but in my opinion not in a bad way. Right now it's an awesome opportunity to give you 3 killers that are hated by survivor mains the most. Place 3, Nurse. Place 2, Trickster, and place number 1, Nemesis. However, playing him brings you so much joy, especially when you have mastered his tentacle whip, because getting out of tier 1 is by far the most annoying part about him. But once you've mastered that and made sure that you always use the Marvin's Block add-on, you're actually good to go. So enjoy survivors a bit. Face camp, face camp, face camp. You know, it's just lovely stuff. Wait a minute, what? On place number 12 we find the Executioner, and yeah, he's pretty fun. Sadly he's not in my rotation as much as he should be, especially like considering the top 10 that are coming up soon and Unro. But all of his mechanics are pretty nice. The Punishment of the Damned and his fast way to murder people in the end is just so satisfying when you're able to pull it off. So his 12th place with the rating of 6.4 is rightfully deserved. Legion misses on the top 10 spot, but simply is an enjoying killer amongst all of them. The Fear Frenzy makes most of it fun. Being able to injure everyone, being able to trigger that killer instinct, and being able to chain those 4 injuries to one badly hit makes him just such a vibe. I'd even argue that the 5th Fear Frenzy hit be possibly in the top 3 of the most satisfying DBD moments as killer. 7.0 rating for Legion, and it's rightfully deserved. Kicking off our top 10, we have the Death Slinger with a rating of 7.2, and I started out not liking Death Slinger on my first like roughly 20 games, but then I somewhat started to fall in love with him throughout the last 3 months. People who have followed my streams in this time period, they know how much I'm obsessed with getting better at Slinger. Hitting that spear always would find itself inside the top 3 of the most satisfying things you can do as killer. When it comes to fun, Spirit is obviously relatively easy to rank inside the top 9. Why, you may ask? Well, phasing is super fast and hitting Survivor afterwards is tremendously fun and satisfying. This satisfaction combined with the sheer fact that she is arguably one of the best killers in the entire game makes her overall pretty enjoyable. A 7.5 rating for our place number 9, the Spirit. As I was mentioning the most satisfying things in Dead by Daylight, I can't ignore the sound the trap makes when someone is stepping onto it. One of the most and best orgasm moments while playing this game for sure. This setup time is a bummer, same goes for Trapper as for Hag, but when this trap snaps, all of the pain is simply gone and you're just filled with pure joy. The Trapper, despite being arguably the weakest killer in game, is just so fun when this one trap hits per game. On place number 7 we find the Huntress with a rating of 7.9. I mean, long headshot snipes and trick shots. Do I need to say anything more about why the Huntress is this far up this list? I don't really think so. Just one addition to it, I heavily encourage killers who make good use out of perks that are normally not seen in the meta. Looking at you, Bitter Murmur. I love that perk very, very much, but in my opinion, it's only good use in Huntress. So, yeah, Huntress plays number 7. Demo is one of the most loved and protected killers, it seems sometimes. It feels like he is never hated, and every time when someone plays him, the game is thoroughly enjoyed not only by the survivors, but also by the killer himself. The Shred is just an awesome power, and yet again so disgustingly satisfying that Demo's 8.1 rating is little to no surprising. The portals are a nice addition, but in my opinion aren't really worth mentioning, as I haven't played the demo very, very much. But the times I've played him, the games were absolutely thrilling. And let's welcome our top 5. Starting off in place number 5, we have Michael Myers with a rating of 8.5. Myers and the fact that his kit requires you to take a totally different approach to the game is already pretty fun. It's a bit of a shame that you have to stalk people to become a normal killer with a lunge attack and a normal terror radius almost, but that's just what it is. What makes Myers immensely fun though are his add-ons. Not only you can play the Mirror Michael, which gives you aura reading ability when stalking, but for that you can't get out of tier 1 or tier 2, which especially in inner maps is just so much fun to play as. And against, obviously, as well. And then on top come his Tombstone add-ons, which also put a completely different game into the mix. Not gonna lie though, the Tombstone offerings are madly overpowered, but extremely satisfying and fun to use. Inside our top 10, as I said, is Michael Myers, and that is so deserved, you have no idea. Question to all of you guys, have you seen my PTP video where I play as Wesker? If you haven't, then you should do it. This explains way better why the Mastermind is one of the most adored and fun killers on this list. Place 4 with an 8.8 rating goes to Wesker. The bronze medal takes home the Nurse with a rating of 9.0. Why is the Nurse one of the most fun killers in DBD? Well, she is strong and I like strong characters that guarantee me a 4K at any given time. I'm still crying about my 28 win streak that I've lost with Nurse on stream, but well, thinking about it, it's probably not as impressive as it seems, as people like Super Alf are able to put on 500 wins in a row. Nonetheless, Nurse gets a bronze medal with absolute ease, as she is strong and very, very fun to play. Why she isn't placed on number 1 spot? Yeah, the blink. The fact that you have to recover from it is sometimes really crueling, but besides that, the Nurse is fun. Blight is a killer I absolutely suck with. Let's face it, let's lay all cards out on the table. However, when everything comes together, the games where you perform extremely well or as expected, the kit and the overall feel of Blight is almost unmatched with any other killer. He is fast, he bumps into stuff, and also has a skill ceiling that is always very far but seems yet so close. Blight needs practice, but if you dedicate your time into him, he can low-key become the uber killer and on top can further provide you the most fun you've possibly ever had while playing Dead by Daylight. If you haven't picked up Blight yet, and if you're a new player, then do that, because he is just a beast when it comes to fun, skill, and power. Place number 2 goes to Blight with a rating of 9.3. And the gold medal goes to the Ghostface with a rating of 9.5. I have to make a confession here. I only recently jumped onto the Ghostface train. I despised him for a very long time and deemed him almost impossible to like and enjoy. Wait, I was so fucking wrong. You need to get over that initial hurdle, you need to figure him out a tiny bit, and after you've learned the basics, you are good to go. Then he brings the same stock and pipe as Myers, but for the entire game. Ghostface feels absolutely different. The fact that you have a skill ceiling that mostly is map knowledge revealing stalking locations makes it just so much better. I have to give it to Ghosty, a big up for him as he takes the #1 spot on this list. And this concludes the which killer is most fun ranking. Which killer do you disagree the most with? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, let me know down below in the comments when you agree with it. You know the drill. I have a Discord. I have also a Patreon if you haven't catched that yet. So go check them out. And with that being said, love you guys and see you next week.